What's going on, everybody? David Feldman-Makrias here, and today we're going to talk about what ASC conversions are specific to car dealers. So let's just jump right in. ASC conversions are basically these series of conversions formulated by what's called the Automotive Standards Council. And that council is responsible for at least attempting to standardize important Google Analytics conversion events in the automotive industry. So what we're going to do today is not only are we going to further define ASC, give some backstory about that, but we're also going to take a look at what are the ASC conversions and why you might see them and why you should know where they are, what they do, and what they look like. Okay, first and foremost, let's look up. First, we got to make my face smaller. Impossible. So let's look up the Automotive Standards Council. What are the ASC conversions for car dealers? The Automotive Standards Council, ASC for Google Analytics 4, GA4, is a standardized analytics reporting system that allows car dealerships to track and report on data across their properties. Okay, so it's basically Google Analytics for conversions. Well, it's not going to be conversions anymore. It's key events, but it's Google Analytics for tracking for car dealers. Okay, those are the two main keywords: GA4 tracking and car dealers. ASC conversions, it's going to be changed to key events, I bet you. ASC conversions support conversions by department, such as sales, service, and parts, and conversion outcomes. For example, dealers can measure how many click-to-call conversions connected with their phone system and how many of those calls led to a sales or service opportunity. So really, it's just a standard set of GA4, formerly called conversions, now called key events, that are important for car dealers. Why are these important again? They're important because it is the digital form of ROI, right? It's how many people are inquiring, how many people are chatting, how many people are calling, how many people are submitting leads. You might ask the question, well, David, I already have all that tracking. I already have conversions in my GA4. Why is this any different from the other ones I've set? Why does my agency tell me that I need to set up different ones? And how come they all pretty much say the same thing? Well, it's because a lot of people anybody that has Google Analytics 4 access can make a type of conversion. They can make an event and then toggle it to a conversion. But the nice thing what the ASC, or the Automotive Standards Council, was trying to do is standardize them, meaning create one set of standards that everyone can be measured by. That way, you're benchmarking. So you could say, oh, okay, what's the average rate that my website should convert traffic to phone calls? And how can I compare that against my competitor, my 20 group, my whatever? That's why they are important. It standardizes the digital metrics ROI across all stores, across all different vendors, across agencies, across any car dealer. And it allows you to benchmark what's going on from your site traffic to a tangible action that happens on your website. All right, so now we just talked about a brief overview of what ASC conversions for car dealers actually are by definition. Now let's get into what they look like and what they measure. So this page right here is a deck brought to you by a website vendor. It's Dealer On. And myself and one of my team leads was going over this information the other day, and we thought it was a nice way to depict what ASC conversions are. Now, if you're a general manager, I think it's important for you to at least be aware of some of this. This is more geared for marketing managers, but it wouldn't hurt a general manager to know this. I mean, for depending upon your store size, your dealer principal, you can know this type of stuff. I mean, these are tangible ROI metrics for your car dealer, right? So I think it could be important for anybody to know. Your service ops, your general manager, dealer principal, what have you. One thing to know too, before I get into this, who founded the Automotive Standards Council? Brian Pash, industry leader, thought leader for quite a while, founder of PCG Companies and BPE Pash Enterprises, established the Automotive Standards Council for Google Analytics 4 to support the automotive community's interests and prevent future standardization errors. I do like that he did this. Some sort of standardization of measurement is important because there's just so many people that claim that they have more conversions than the next. But if you don't really know the right questions to ask for, and you don't really know exactly what a good conversion is versus a bad conversion, or what's now called a good key event versus a bad key event, then it can be very, very messy. So the standardization goal is right. I still think there's flaws, just like anything, but we have a jumping off point. So let's get into it. All right, so here's ASC Conversions. All right, here you go. Just kidding. I'm going to explain it. That's why I think everything is, I don't see too many resources out there where we actually explain ASC conversions, what they are, what they mean, what they look like, blah, 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 blah. This document is great, but it looks like on the left side, you got this code, right? And then on the right side, we're just pointing to stuff on the website. Well, let's dive into it right now. Let's go through it. So this is, I don't think it's all of the ASC conversions. These are a majority of it. We don't get into like the real granular detailed stuff like service or parts, but these are the basics, right? And it's more geared for sales. But let's go over it. So first we have ASC underscore page view. First of all, some nomenclature things to know. ASC goals, I'm sorry, not goals, I should rephrase. ASC conversions, or what are now key events in Analytics 4, are always going to be lowercase, and there's never going to be a space in between words. It's always going to have an underscore. And that is more of a nomenclature that's accepted by the coding world and more of a nomenclature that's accepted by, the digital world in general. We don't want spaces in between things because it just it doesn't read correctly and it doesn't tie the string together. So that's why that is. You're always going to see things start with ASC, which I really, really like. Like the nomenclature labeling, I really enjoy this because it makes it very easy and very clear to understand exactly what's happening. And I want to show you an example before I read each one of an analytics account that doesn't do this way. I do have access to it. Other vendors do too, but I just want to showcase why. So now I'm in Google Analytics 4. I'm actually in the events section, and these are where conversions will pop up. And we can even see, hey, here's ASC underscore page view. That is an Automotive Standards Council event. Again, conversions, which are now called key events, are all events. So here's the other thing, though, too. If I look at a full list of events, I have 71 events tracked. And they're all this stuff. And, there's stuff in here with ASC, which is great. There's also stuff in here like Goobagoo, eShop clicks, form start with a space, a lot of underscores, capitalizations. There's a bunch of different vendors that have access to new car franchises, GA4 typically. And they'll try and make events and conversions suited to their own reporting. And that's why, again, it's nice to have some sort of standardization. And when you look in here, you can see, okay, most of them are labeled nicely, meaning all lowercase with underscores. Usually that gives me a sign that, okay, that conversion is probably set up correctly, or we can trust it a little bit more. When we have stuff that's just in here like lead, sent, contact, video progress, I don't know what any of that means. What video? There's a million videos on my website, right? What video are we talking about? Lead sent. Okay, what lead that's sent? Is it my CTA lead? Is it a service lead? Like what does that actually mean? Chat started. Okay, that's a little better. Click change. What is change? Change what? Change like the model view, change the URL bar, change what? So that's why, again, the standardization of events and key events, formerly conversions, are really important. So ASC is already in here. And if you use a website vendor that is, Dealer On, Dealer Inspire, Dealer.com, some of the major ones, you're going to have these key events standardized in here already. But let's go back here. And I just wanted to show you an example. And let's go through each one so you can know what each one loosely means. So we have ASC page view, and it's linking to here. There's nothing specific on this page. It's just this is fires whenever a page is loaded. It's not going to have a bunch of significance. This will be similar to page views and sessions, might be a little bit less, but it's an important baseline metric to have. I don't think you're going to get a lot of insights on that one. Then we have ASC menu interaction, and that is pointing to here. So this is our menu. Let me zoom in a little bit. We have new, use, special, service and parts, finance, about, contact. So that is a menu interaction. And you know what one of the flaws is for ASC is, how do I know if this is mobile or desktop? Because right now we're looking at a desktop view, but we know typically what I see, 70% plus of traffic is coming from a mobile device, not a desktop device. So that's one of the flaws with ASC. We don't differentiate menu interactions by device, at least that I know of. I do need to further test to make sure I'm accurate on that. But at least in this picture, the menu interaction here is your top, menu, navigation bar, top nav, top drop downs, all synonymous. Then we have what's called ASC click to call. And this placates more into why mobile tracking would be better, because what does this point to? This points to the sales phone number. You also have service and parts. But here's the thing. How many people click the button on a website on desktop and actually dial the number? I'm going to say very, very few, unless you have Skype or some sort of video phone calling hooked up to your computer. So click to call is more prevalent for mobile. And then again, that's why I think that a derivative of this should be broken out for mobile and desktop too. And honestly, you can have different interactions and all that stuff by mobile and desktop, and they should be done separately. Anyways, ASC special offer. So wait, let me go back. Click to call, that's when someone actually clicks the button, right? ASC special offer. So what is that pointing to? That's pointing to here, $200 off newer pre-owned vehicles. Click here now. So if someone interacts with that top banner, very curious to know how that actually tests out and works. I know that some website providers have just storage for top banners and stuff like that. So I'm wondering how that's standardized. And we're going to have to get into a whole video about testing these conversions, key events, in the future. ASC element configuration, and we're pointing to our filters. So if anybody goes through the filters, I would have just called that ASC filters, because that's what they're known as. Let's go filter out the vehicles, type, year, make, model, body style, trim, all that good stuff here. So, but that's what it's called. ASC media interaction. See, that's a lot better of a descriptor than, video plays or whatever we saw previously. Media interaction, so what is it pointing to? Media interaction is pointing to the actual image. So an interaction would be someone not just viewing it, someone clicking on it, toggling it, rotating it left to right. ASC retail process. So retail process typically leads to like a digital retailing platform. So in this example, ASC retail process is leading us here. This says personalize my payment. That's a very common call to action for a digital retailing platform. And there are oftentimes buttons. I've also seen them as, actually yesterday or 2 days ago, I've seen them as, payment numbers in here that you can click on, couple different ways. I've also seen them in the nav bar too. So I'm curious, that would be one of the topics for testing. There's multiple ways to get to a lot of these items. And does ASC actually track them all? That is one of the interesting notes. It's a difficult procedure. I take my hat off to Pash for trying to do it, and it just kind of spreads his knowledge and everything in there. It's a great marketing tactic, and I just don't think, and this is one of the major flaws, I don't think that it's, how do you say, truly measuring correctly. It's better, but it's not the best. And we'll go into that more when we actually go through and look at all the tracking. Anyways, we're just defining some. ASC CTA interaction. So CTA, what does that stand for? Call to action. When people talk about that in terms of digital marketing and car dealer digital marketing, they're talking about a button, typically, a call to action. Do something, right? And what this is pointing to is check availability in this instance. So a check availability button, a get e-price button, a form submission button, a get best price, that is a CTA interaction. An interaction, what that means is not someone actually filling out the form to check availability. It only means for them clicking on the button. One more time. An ASC CTA interaction means they're clicking on the button only. They are not necessarily filling out a form. It's very, very important to note, because just because someone clicks on the button doesn't mean they completed the form all the way. Maybe the form was too long. Maybe the form said the wrong things. Maybe there was a break in the system. So clicking buttons is great, but not as great as filling out forms. You need a certain amount of button clicks to get to forms. And that's actually one insight that you might want to test, right? You know, how is our ASC CTA interaction to ASC form submission? That would be a very, very interesting expansion of knowing that your website converts well. Okay, so we were just on ASCTA interaction. Next, we are going to go to ASC form engagement. See, this is interesting. ASC form engagement. So what is that pointing to? It's pointing to scheduled test drive. And ASC form submission is also going to scheduled test drive. So these 1, 2, 3 are interesting to me because they all mean different things, but they all point to the same button. And the ones that I'm talking about are ASC form engagement, ASC form submission, and ASC CTA interaction. So ASC CTA interaction to me means someone clicking on a button, clicking on a call to action. ASC form engagement, that means someone actually engaging with the form. What does engaging with the form mean? Starting to fill out their information, right? They didn't necessarily submit, but they started to fill out their information. I'm wondering how that's actually tracked and the thoroughness of that. Because once we start getting into this level and minute of tracking, this is really the creme de la creme here. Because once we start to get to this level and we verify that it's accurate, if we test it, this is testing these 3 and finding out the numbers of these 3 will allow your website to convert better. You won't have to spend additional budget. You'll actually know what budget's working for you better, and you'll be able to get more opportunities to sell more cars. Let me repeat myself. The creme de la creme of this video is in these 3 ASC conversions: ASC CTA interaction, ASC form engagement, and ASC form submission. Why? Because they talk about each step in the process of people going through the website, clicking on a button, filling out the form, and actually submitting the form. Once you understand the drop-off points, percentage points, and differences in all 3 of those numbers, then you can fine-tune your process to make those numbers more equal, the percentages more equal of each other, which will lead to additional leads, quality leads, and additional sales opportunities. That is the most important thing I can think of in this video. So again, ASC form submission, it all leads back to this scheduled test drive button, but that is just when someone submits the form. So you could think of this as the interaction, and this is a nice way that Brian Pash and his team led this out. Someone needs to interact with the button, then they need to engage with the form, meaning fill out their stuff. Let's go back. Someone needs to interact with the button, meaning they need to click on it. Then someone needs to actually engage with the form, meaning start to fill out their information. Then someone needs to hit submit, right? So those are the three-step process. Pretty good stuff. And that could be used across anything. But here's the thing. It's like I'm very curious to see how this tracking is going to lay out, because is it going to be accurate? We're going to make some follow-up videos to test this. I already have a set video about not testing necessarily ASC conversions, or key events, but testing just GA4 key events and conversions in general. And there are errors, right? GA4 isn't always accurate. And we need to know that level of accuracy so we can understand how to make the system better. Anyways, let's finish this out. Finally, we have these ones, ASC COM engagement and ASC COM submission. So COM, I'm thinking they're abbreviating for communication. What they're pointing to is a chat tool, right? Engage with us. And it's the same sort of step-by-step process for chat. Or I'm sorry, as we saw in forms, just for chat now. So ASC COM engagement, that's like someone clicking this chat button here and opening it up, right? And maybe filling out their name or starting to type in the field. ASC COM submission, that's when they click enter on the chat and actually send the chat over. Those are different items, right? But those are different items. So same process for form submissions, but just for chat. Guys, that is a brief overview of ASC conversions. We talked about a lot of things in this video. We talked about what are ASC conversions, a brief overview of the Automotive Standards Council, and what they actually mean in context to a website. We also talked about, the pros of standardization amongst these things, but also the cons, such as it's not as accurate and fine-tuned for our website and our differences. It's not, we don't know how they fire yet. We don't know how they test. And there's some other just little notes about, okay, what about mobile and desktop? Those are just three of the, maybe not flaws, but just things that aren't well documented that I've seen yet. There might be documents out there already. I'll let you know. But I hope this helps. This is a breakdown of ASC conversions. We know what they are. ASC conversions are good. They're not the end-all, be-all. You don't have to run and say, if I don't have enough ASC conversions, I'm not going to sell any cars. That's not the idea, although Brian Pash may want you to think so. ASC conversions are a good standardization, but what should happen beyond that is your marketing manager or your agency or whoever you're using should take the ASC conversions and make them fine-tune your website. Now, we'll get more into that in my videos, but hey, if you like this content, throw me a like, thumbs up, and I'd be happy to, go back and forth with any comments you might have. Thank you so much. This is David Feldman-Makrias, and I will talk to you very soon.